Big thanks to Lit RPG Reads and Paul Bello, fine fellow, for sending over this awesome deep dive material, all about political marriages in D&D. You know, this topic really hits close to home for me. Just last week, I was running a campaign, and things took a very unexpected turn. One of my players, a noble paladin, he was all set, ready to go to slay a dragon, and bam! His family announces an arranged marriage, totally out of left field, to secure an alliance with a neighboring kingdom, let's just say. Dragon slaying took a back seat to all this courtly intrigue and family drama for a good long while.
That's a classic example of how political marriages can really shake things up in a D&D campaign. You know, what I find fascinating is that these marriages, they're so much more than just romantic unions. They're really strategic tools, often used to forge alliances, consolidate power, or even maintain those all-important bloodlines. Think of them as the building blocks of empires, the threads that weave together, the tapestry of kingdoms and rivalries, you know, in your game world.
So we're not just talking about a simple wedding ceremony here. We're talking about high-stakes diplomacy, with implications for the entire campaign setting.
Exactly. And to really understand the mechanics of these unions, we need to take a look at the alliance framework matrix that Paul Bello, fine fellow, has laid out for us in the source material. This matrix outlines different types of political marriages, categorized by their primary function, for example. You have royal marriages, designed to consolidate bloodlines and ensure succession, vassal marriages, meant to secure the loyalty of lesser lords, trade alliances, focused primarily on economic benefits, and even defensive pacts, solidified through marriage to present a united front against a common enemy.
That matrix, it's like a DM's cheat sheet for understanding the motivations behind these marriages. It's not just about love or even duty. It's about power, resources, and that intricate dance of political maneuvering.
Precisely. And once you understand the type of alliance being sought, you can then delve into the specific factors that influence these unions. We're talking prestige, of course. A powerful king isn't going to marry off their heir to someone from a minor, insignificant family. Resources also play a role. A marriage might be arranged to secure access to valuable trade routes, fertile lands, or even magical resources.
Almost like a fantasy world version.
Yes.
Of a merger or acquisition, but with more swords and sorcery involved.
A very apt analogy. And let's not forget about magical proficiency. In a world where magic is a source of both power and prestige, a family's magical lineage becomes incredibly important.
That's where the bloodline matrix comes in, right? I noticed that in the source material. Seems like keeping track of who your great-great-grand wizard was could be crucial in these political marriage negotiations.
Absolutely. The bloodline matrix helps track those inherited magical abilities, divine blessings, or even curses that run through a family line. It adds a layer of depth to character backstories and can even become a major plot point in your campaign.
I'm already imagining a scenario where a player discovers a hidden magical talent, all thanks to their carefully documented family tree. Or maybe they uncover a dark secret about their ancestry. That threatens to unravel a carefully negotiated marriage alliance.
Those are great examples of how these matrices can be used to enhance the role-playing experience and add depth to your game world. And speaking of resources, we can't forget about dowries, which are a cornerstone of these political marriages.
Yes, the economic side of love. It's not just about exchanging rings, it's about exchanging assets. That can shift the balance of power. Tell me more.
Dowries represent the exchange of wealth and resources to solidify the union. And we're not just talking about gold and jewels here. It could be land rights, military support, trade agreements, access to magical artifacts, or even the promise of future services or favors. Think of it as a way to sweeten the deal and ensure that both parties have a vested interest in the success of the marriage.
Paul Bello, fine fellow, even included a dowry framework table in the source material, outlining the different types of resources that might be involved. It's fascinating to see the sheer variety and to consider how these dowry negotiations could play out in a campaign.
Imagine the tension around the table. As players, representing noble families, haggle over the terms of a dowry. It's a chance for some dramatic role-playing and can even lead to unexpected conflicts or alliances.
I can see it now. A party of adventurers hired to safely transport a priceless magical artifact that forms part of a princess's dowry. Or maybe a cunning rogue attempting to sabotage a rival kingdom's dowry negotiations to gain a strategic advantage. The possibilities are endless.
Precisely. And here's where it gets even more interesting. What happens when those dowry promises are broken? That's when things can get really messy.
Oh, I can only imagine the drama. Broken promises, accusations of betrayal, maybe even a good old-fashioned war erupting over a disputed dowry. Sounds like a recipe for an epic campaign arc.
You're absolutely right. A broken dowry promise can be a catalyst for conflict, sparking feuds that span generations and draw entire kingdoms into war. It's a goldmine for storytelling and can lead to some truly memorable campaign moments.
Okay, so we've established that these political marriages, they're more than just romantic fairy tale weddings. They're calculated moves in a grand game of power and strategy. But let's be honest. Where there's power, there's bound to be some
juicy drama.
Right. I'm talking betrayals, power grabs, maybe even a little poison in the goblet.
Let's just say that courtly intrigue thrives in the shadows of these grand alliances. A marriage contract, it might seal a pact on paper, but it doesn't guarantee loyalty or erase ambition. Each union creates a ripple effect, shifting alliances, sparking rivalries, and opening up opportunities for those seeking to gain an advantage.
So it's like a game within a game. On the surface, you have these formal alliances forged through marriage, but beneath the surface, there's this whole undercurrent of scheming and maneuvering.
Exactly. And that's where things get really interesting for players and dungeon masters alike. Imagine a scenario where your party is caught in the crossfire of a power struggle between two families vying for control of the throne. Do they stay loyal to their original patrons? Do they play both sides, attempting to manipulate the situation to their advantage? Or do they forge their own path, becoming kingmakers in their own right?
That's what I love about D&D. Those moments where player choices have real consequences, shaping the fate of kingdoms and empires, and these political marriages create such fertile ground for those kinds of decisions.
Let me give you a concrete example. Imagine a noble family marrying their heir to a rival's daughter. On the surface, it's a gesture of unity, but in reality, they're using that marriage to plant a spy within their enemy's court, gaining access to secrets, sowing discord, and ultimately aiming to destabilize their rivals from within.
That's like something straight out of Game of Thrones. And it reminds me of a campaign I played in years ago. My character, a rogue with a knack for information gathering, ended up embroiled in a plot to sabotage a royal wedding. It involved forged documents, secret rendezvous in moonlit gardens, and a daring escape through the sewers beneath the castle.
That's a perfect illustration of how these political marriages can create such compelling narratives. And it's not just about grand conspiracies and schemes. Sometimes the most impactful moments come from the smaller, more personal betrayals. Imagine discovering that your trusted advisor, who arranged your advantageous marriage, has actually been manipulating you for their own gain.
That kind of personal betrayal cuts deep, especially when it comes from someone you thought was on your side. And it adds an emotional layer to the political intrigue, raising the stakes and making the player's choices that much more impactful.
And let's not forget about the role of magic in all of this. We've talked about magical dowries and the importance of bloodlines. But magic can also be used to directly influence the dynamics of a political marriage.
That's right. We touched on it earlier. But I'm really curious to explore how magic can be used to manipulate these unions, for good or for evil. Give me some examples.
Think about love potions, for example. A classic trope, perhaps, but one with the potential for intrigue. What if a love potion was used to force a reluctant noble into a marriage they didn't desire, creating a rift between families and potentially sparking a war? Or imagine a marriage bound by a powerful arcane ritual, one designed to amplify the couple's magical abilities or grant them unique powers as a united force.
That's an intriguing idea. A magical ritual that intertwines the destinies of two individuals. For better or worse, it opens up so many possibilities for storytelling. What if the ritual backfires? What if unforeseen consequences arise from this magical bond? Could lead to a campaign arc full of unexpected twists and turns.
Exactly. And what if a rival sorcerer or jealous family member tampered with the ritual, imbuing it with a curse instead of a blessing? The possibilities are endless, and it's up to the dungeon master to use these elements of magic to create a truly unforgettable campaign experience.
I'm also curious about how prophecies and divination magic might play a role in these political marriages. Prophecies are a classic element of fantasy, and they often revolve around bloodlines, destinies, and the fate of kingdoms.
Prophecies add an element of fate and inevitability to the narrative. Imagine a prophecy foretelling the marriage of two individuals destined to unite their kingdoms and usher in an era of prosperity, or perhaps bring about its downfall. This could be used to create a sense of urgency and momentum in the campaign, pushing players towards a preordained outcome while giving them the agency to shape how that prophecy unfolds.
And what about divination magic? Could a powerful seer or oracle be used to influence marriage negotiations, perhaps by revealing a hidden threat to one of the families, or uncovering a secret that could alter the balance of power.
Divination magic adds a layer of uncertainty and suspense. It raises questions about the reliability of prophecies, the potential for manipulation, and the role of free will versus destiny. Imagine a party seeking guidance from an oracle, only to receive a cryptic message about a marriage alliance that could save the kingdom or lead to its ruin. Do they trust the prophecy? Do they try to intervene?
It seems like magic adds a whole new dimension of complexity and intrigue to these already intricate political marriages. It's not just about forging alliances and securing power. It's about navigating a world where magic can influence destinies, alter relationships, and even rewrite the very fabric of reality.
And let's not forget that these magical elements are woven into the rich tapestry of culture and tradition that shapes each D&D world. Each kingdom, each region will have its own unique customs and rituals surrounding marriage, and those traditions can be just as important as any legal contract or political agreement.
We've talked about the grand strategies, the power plays, the magical influences, and even the potential for some serious drama. But let's not forget that these political marriages also have a very real impact on the lives of the individuals involved. We're not just moving pieces on a chessboard here. We're dealing with human emotions, personal ambitions, and the complexities of relationships.
It's easy to get caught up in the grand sweep of history and forget that these marriages are ultimately about the union of two people. Each individual brings their own hopes and fears and aspirations to the table. And those personal stories can be just as compelling as any epic battle or political intrigue.
It reminds me of a campaign where one of my players, a young noblewoman, was betrothed to a prince from a neighboring kingdom. She was initially excited about the prospect of love and a life of luxury, but as she delved deeper into the intricacies of the court, she realized that her marriage was just one small piece in a much larger game of power she had to choose between her personal happiness and the duty she owed to her family and her kingdom.
Those are the kinds of dilemmas that make for truly engaging role-playing experiences. It's not just about what your character does, it's about how they feel and the choices they make when faced with difficult situations.
So how can players and dungeon masters explore these personal stories? Within the context of a political marriage campaign, it seems like it could be a challenge to balance the grand scale of kingdoms and alliances with the intimacy of individual relationships.
One approach is to focus on the smaller moments, the interactions between characters that reveal their personalities, motivations, and vulnerabilities. Imagine a scene where two betrothed individuals, forced together by political necessity, share a quiet moment of connection, discovering a shared passion for art, music, or even a subversive sense of humor.
Those little moments of connection can really bring the characters to life, making them feel more relatable and human, even in a setting filled with magic and mythical creatures.
Exactly, and those moments can have a ripple effect, influencing the character's actions and decisions. On a larger scale, perhaps that shared connection inspires a sense of loyalty or empathy, leading them to defy expectations and challenge the political machinations that brought them together.
Or maybe it creates a conflict of interest, forcing them to choose between their personal feelings and their political obligations. It seems like these political marriages can become a crucible for character development, forcing individuals to confront their values and make difficult choices.
Absolutely. And let's not forget about the potential for romance. While many of these marriages begin as arrangements of convenience, they can evolve into something deeper and more meaningful over time.
That's the classic enemies to lovers trope, right? Two individuals from different worlds, forced together by circumstance, but gradually discovering a connection that transcends their initial animosity or indifference.
Exactly. And it's a trope that works so well because it taps into our desire for connection and the belief that love can conquer even the most formidable obstacle.
I can see it now. Two characters from rival kingdoms, bound by a marriage they initially resent, but gradually finding common ground, supporting each other through trials and tribulations, and ultimately forging a bond. That defies the expectations of their families and the political landscape.
It's a story that resonates with us on a fundamental level, and it's a reminder that even in a world of political intrigue and high-stakes diplomacy, there's always room for hope, compassion, and the possibility of genuine connection.
This has been an incredible deep dive, and I feel like we've barely scratched the surface of this fascinating topic. I'm already brainstorming ideas for my next campaign, incorporating these insights into the world building, character development, and plot lines.
It's been a pleasure exploring these multifaceted unions with you, and I'm confident that our listeners will find endless inspiration in this topic as well.
Before we sign off, I want to pose a question to our listeners. How have political marriages impacted your own D&D campaigns? Have you ever played a character caught in the web of a politically motivated union? Have you used these marriages as a catalyst for intrigue or conflict in your games? We'd love to hear your stories and insights in the comments below.
And a huge thank you, once again, to Paul Bello, fine fellow, for providing the fantastic source material that sparked this fascinating conversation. We encourage you to check out his work for more insights and inspiration.
Until next time, happy gaming.